Hello and welcome to the Trail and Adventure Motorbike Podcast with me, Clive Barber, and my good mate, Noel Tom. For the days when you can't ride your bike, there's always the Trail and Adventure Motorbike Podcast. This week, we're really happy to be joined by Marc and Jamie, the lightweight adventurers from off of YouTube. I assume they're talking about lightweight bikes, not themselves. That's a bit rude. They're going to tell us all about themselves, their biking history, and they're going to talk about their channel. There's an awful lot of CRF stuff on their channel, so if you're interested in the ubiquitous Honda, please do check their channel out. But they also review other stuff, and they're starting to review other bikes as well. They make great films. We're also talking about the Honda CRF250 and 300. Between us, we've got 5 of them. So hopefully our knowledge will help you in your decisions as to whether you're going to buy one and what you're actually going to do to yours. Sit back, listen, and enjoy. Massive thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it. We've both been watching your films. Probably me more so than Noel, because Noel's had his CRF for quite a while now, whereas I've only had mine for about a month.
I didn't realise, because I've seen lots of your films, and I didn't recently I've been changing the fork springs in my
brilliant.
CRF. So I sort of Googled how to change fork springs, and I was directed to that little film you made outside. I thought that was funny that you did the job out in the sunshine, didn't you? It wasn't sort of a garage-based film. Really helped me enormously just to see you actually do it step by step.
You know, that's brilliant. And we've had a few comments, and people have said this has been like the first step into motorcycle foray that we've ever had. It makes me feel really good, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we don't get masses of feedback. When we do get some great feedback, the last podcast we did was just about technology for adventure biking, and that's gone down a storm. We've had 3 or 4 people message us saying that's a fantastic podcast, really helpful. But yeah, it's lovely, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really nice.
Well, I was going to say, you saved my airbox, because I was going to cut my airbox up, and I watched your film on is it worth, modifying the airbox. And then thought, well, actually, no, it probably isn't, I don't think.
Yeah, 6 and 2 3s. We've actually recently, we haven't put the video out. We're waiting on another aspect to it, but we put it on the dyno since. And it doesn't add power, but it does add torque in the mid-range on the part throttle. It adds around about 2% worth of torque overall. So in reality, it probably is worth it versus a compromise of then, potentially ingesting dirt and dust and all the rest of it. But wait out for that video, because I think we're looking to develop the power of the CRF a little bit as well.
And I believe you've also just had a fairly big milestone on YouTube as well.
Yeah, massive actually. 250,000 views now, which is amazing.
That's superb, isn't it?
Yeah, huge.
It's really been a bit of a rocket ship ride for us, just over a year really on the channel, and it's been steady growth, but you almost get used to that growth, and when it doesn't go up quite as quick as it did last month, you start going, what's going on? Why doesn't everyone love it? Why are we not at 2.4 million subscribers?
And especially me, I'm such an analytical person. I get on the phone to Jamie, right, what are we doing wrong? What's up with our performance here?
Bloody nightmare.
And in fact, it was just half term last week.
Yeah, that's it. I didn't even think about that.
Excellent. Well, congratulations. That's fantastic. We haven't had quite that many listeners yet.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you will. I mean, it's a very different market, what you guys are into, what we're in, I think, as we were just chatting a minute ago, Clive, that sort of being able to listen to the podcast is brilliant. And we're only recently coming into that, which is weird, because you listen to radio and Spotify all the time, but actually it's quite nice to hear stuff, when you're on a long journey or whatever, or a run. Yeah, so it's
and
good.
You know what I've noticed about podcasts, and we've spoken to Greg. We know Greg from his films, but listening to Greg on a podcast, and that was the first one I listened to from you guys. I found out a different aspect to him. It's more raw, it's more personal.
He's a dick, isn't he? You've discovered that. Yeah, we've known it for years.
Greg, if you're listening or watching, we didn't know that.
There's more time, isn't there? And there's more depth to it. I think that's what's interesting about it.
I think it's really immersive, because you build the image in your mind of what's going on. You can almost interpret what they're saying slightly different to a video. I think it's a very different medium.
James O'Brien always says it's a vehicle that's intended to give him more time to talk to people than his normal 3-minute chats on the radio, so you can actually sit down and spend an hour or so with somebody and get to the depth of whatever they're talking about.
Just the method of listening, I think, listening through headphones. I can't listen to a podcast just on a speaker or just on the phone speaker. It's a totally different thing. I'll often be doing something whilst I'm listening to a podcast, often work. And often when I look at that job, it's sort of building job or something, the work becomes so synonymous with what I was listening to at the time, and I know exactly what I was listening to when I built that, because it seems to just burn into your memory.
I tell you what's really lovely is our mate David never listened to podcasts before, and he's a builder, and he started listening to ours, and he's just like discovered podcasts now, and that is great because you can listen to them when you're building. You can actually listen to something, can't you? Really, you can actually concentrate on two things at once.
They are a great thing to have on in the background whilst you're doing something. So my dad lives in Spain, and we're lucky enough we're going to see him in a few weeks' time, actually, on a bike. We're going to bike down to his house. So watch out for that video. Cheeky plug. He's been big into podcasts for a while, and he's a little bit deaf. So my morning routine when I stop at his house is I get woke up by his Alexa or whatever it is in the kitchen on full blast. And it's just some sort of podcast started to come in, and it'll be some news thing or some global type informative podcast, and that's the first thing. So Mark, get ready to be woken up by that at full volume first thing in the morning. My first bike was a moped. It was a Suzuki Love. That sounds really manly.
It sounds more like a scooter than a moped.
It is a scooter. It was a scooter back like 20 odd years ago. So yeah, obviously Mark and I are two of the people that run our YouTube channel, the Lightweight Adventurers. But life of motorbiking for me started at the age of 16, when I just start to get that first desire to want to go and adventure and have a look at what there is outside of your local town. You know, I was never big into bikes as a kid, but my mate Stuart, who you might have seen on some of the videos, he introduced me. He was always a biker nut, so he bought a moped. I also bought a moped scooter, and we used to go to a place called Matlock in Derbyshire, Matlock Bath. It was where all the bikers went, and you get all these great bikes lined up down the side of the chip shops and stuff. That's what people did on a Sunday. And then we'd have us two on our little 50cc scooters to kind of ride up. And that was the start for me, really. My biking lineage from then kind of went on to, I had a CB500. That was my first proper bike. And then a couple of sports bikes, GSXR 600 and CBR 600. And then moved on to the bike we've got now, which is the CRF250. And that's my first adventure bike, first bike that I'd ever wanted to take off-road, just because of that desire of wanting to go and explore more. And that's, kind of offered much more that way without ripping my arms off.
Had you done much off-road before then?
Zero. Absolutely nothing. And I'd not done loads of road stuff. I'd commuted to work and the normal Sunday rider. Mark will tell you about what he's done. But I'd not been exposed an awful lot to biking, but definitely not off-road.
Why didn't you go down the classic route of getting a GS1200 as your first off-road bike?
I nearly did. We discussed this. We discussed that quite a lot because, you watch the long way round and the long way down. And obviously that's what gets almost everybody into adventure riding. And we almost did that. We almost bought some really old GSs. But then we came up with this notion. I don't know why, because it's never actually going to happen. We came up with this notion that we wanted a bike that if you needed to, you could load onto a canoe and get rowed across a river or something. So it needed to be light enough for that. And that really, truthfully, was where we started looking at lighter bikes and very much the lightweight side of adventure biking, rather than that big, heavy, cumbersome bike that can take you on very long distances, Hey,
we've all got to have a dream. It might just be the River Trent, but you'll get across it.
Probably where his moped is now.
Yeah. So on the other bikes, like the CB you had, did you travel on those bikes?
No, that was very much just me getting into biking. I was 17, 18. I wanted something. Well, I rode my mates against you. I wasn't that bothered about bikes. He said, have a go on this. I instantly got the big biker smile and was hooked on it from there on in. And it was really just a toy. It was, traveling. I used to work in York and was traveling backwards and forwards to Nottingham. So that was more fun than sitting in a little Renault 5 or something on the motorway. I was just a nicer way to get about, really. And that's all I had it for, just a toy.
Mark, do you want to fill us in on your history?
So my name's Mark. I'm a teacher. I'm in Lincoln, but I'm not a Lincoln native. So being ex-military, come from all over. And I started off in East Anglia, really. That's where I grew up. And I don't know if you've ever been to East Anglia or if you went there as a younger kid, but it's a bit of a lawless county in a lot of ways. It's flat and it's sparse and the police are spread out. So, and that's relevant because when I was 12, 13, 14, riding big 400 dirt bikes through the forest was common. So that's how I got into bikes. My older brother would sit me on the back. He taught me how to operate a bike, which I couldn't touch the floor with. And then I'd go as fast as my eyeballs with no helmet around them would allow me, through the forest. Terrifying. When I look back at it now, I think that's utterly, utterly stupid.
Although saying that, that's the sort of thing Noel still does.
But stupid in many ways. I could have hurt myself, could have hurt anybody else, let alone all the now moral green lane things that the lightweight adventurers and Jamie and I really sign up to. But
what kind of bikes were you riding then?
You know what? It was many years ago, 30 odd years ago. But Kawasaki's, Suzuki's, you name it, the brands. But anywhere 250 up to 400.
Are they still 2-strokes then, or have they gone to 4-stroke?
A bit of a mixture of both. The one bike that I really remember riding, because I rode it more often than not because I could touch it forward, was a little Italjet 50. Do you know those little things? Twist and go things, a bit of a soft roader bike, but I loved that thing. I pretty much borrowed that whenever we went out because I could go anywhere on it and touch the brakes. It's automatic. So
I had a similar story, really. I was riding lots of great big CR250s and Mako scramblers and all kinds, but the RM80 that a friend of mine had was the most fun to ride, and a Honda Monkey bike was the most fun to ride.
There you go, yeah.
But the RM80 was a fantastic little bike. That was great fun. But at the time, I was probably already 6 foot, but it was still great fun.
Yeah, great, because it's manageable, and actually you can ride. There's an adage, that it's more fun riding a slow bike fast than a fast bike slow, right? So, and that definitely applied to when I was a kid. But yeah, that sort of got me into bikes, and then I joined the Air Force, and the Air Force pays well. Qualified as an engineer, so I knew how to fix things, and it paid me well. So there I was with the ability to do up a bike with money burning a hole in my pocket. So at 21, I did my direct access and went out and got the fastest thing that I could, which at the time was a Thundercat, a YZF600 Thundercat. Banged up whole thing, rode that for a year, chose to trade it in. And of course, the next bike you go to naturally is a TL1000, right? At 22 years old. Called the Widowmaker. I wasn't married, but it tried to kill me still.
Did you have any falls on these bikes?
The TL, it was my first one. So, somersaulted that into a field at 85.
Ooh.
Yeah. And walked away from it, it was in Scotland. I was living in Scotland at the time. I'd gone round the bend, a well-known road, on a friend's Fireblade, maybe 2 weeks before. And I took the bend at some speed, whatever speed. Anyway, matched that speed on the TL, but the TL just didn't want to corner. That's not what they do. It didn't go around the bend, and I tried to. So we both ended up in the ditch.
Right. Your body didn't hit anything?
Well, so I sort of fell into this drainage ditch. They sort of cut out the dips at the bottom of the side of the street. And then there was like this, I don't know how to describe it, but a drain, actual brick-built drain, which blocked the ditch. I don't know how to best describe it, but my body slammed up against that and stopped me from whatever speed I was doing at the time, 20, 30, having to skid along the road. Stopped dead. So the whole right-hand side of me was bruised. It was black and blue. I had organised hematomas, which is ultimately just a bruise in between muscles from head to toe. But nothing broken, and I walked away from it.
Wow.
Which, insane.
Yeah.
So, of course, I fixed that bike up and quickly moved it on because I couldn't afford to claim on the insurance, and a bit unscrupulous now when I think about it, but I put an MOT on it, moved it along. I'm sure it's legal.
Yeah.
And I got myself a Fireblade because I'd liked the other guy. Rode that around for a while, and then once I was old enough and sensible enough, I traded it in and got a brand new 636, ZX636, and that was my bike then for a good few years. That eventually led me on to racing. So I raced for a few years, raced 600 through the Air Force. I say race, it's like a handful of events. Raced on that, did a number of track days. And then when that was getting too fast, moved down to classic 250s, 2-strokes, and then classic 125s, 2-strokes again. The old Aprilias, Cajivas. Loved it.
I'm starting to see what you mean now, Jamie. This is annoying, isn't it?
Yeah,
as bike histories go, this really knocks us all out of the water.
And then of course, I sold my 636 and got a Benelli Tornado. and this is where things start to change for me, because I got a Benelli Tornado 2007, a beautiful red Italian Exotica thing. Took it down to London, got stolen overnight, flat dead.
No.
27, no claims, bike's gone. Police did recover it, but it was totaled. And so well done, police, Met Police. Yeah, so I bought a 10 Air 660 because that's all I could afford. And I hated it. I utterly hated it. But I was riding at home. I'd met my girlfriend, Katie, now my wife. And I was riding from one place to another to go see her along the A38 near Burton. I'll never forget it, just outside Nottingham. And I had a panic attack. And so I pulled over the side of the road, sweating, palpitations. Don't know what it was all about. Limped the bike home at 30 or 40. Parked up, didn't ride again for, 8 years.
What was that attack brought on by, do you think?
You know what? I've never, ever put my finger on it. I just felt incredibly vulnerable, and I didn't ride for 8 or 9 years. Parked it up at my parents' house, didn't ride it, sold it without riding it. Somebody come and collected it, used the money to get married, and then the only other time I've ridden a bike is I rode a bike around the States, a Harley Davidson around the Grand Canyon. It's the only other time I've ridden since, until I got my CRF.
Jamie, it's getting worse. Jesus Christ, he's done everything.
I know, it's horrible, isn't it?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm one of the. I'm like a through and through biker who had such a hiatus from bikes. I lost that biker identity, you know. And so when we created the Lightweight Adventurers, it found like, not to get all philosophical, but I felt like I was regaining this identity, you know.
You're welcome, Mark.
Yeah.
Is that what brought you back to biking then, the off-roading stuff, or what was the impetus that got you back on two wheels?
Well, so, and Jamie will back me up on this one. We'd actually always said we wanted this YouTube channel, which was adventure. And I'm big into my Land Rovers, love my Land Rovers. So Jamie had a Land Rover at the time. We said, well, we'll make it a Land Rover adventure channel, whatever it is. But actually adventuring on four wheels is bulky, it's heavy, it's hard, it's cumbersome. And it was Jamie, I got to put it all down to you, mate. And you said, well, this would be so much easier on bikes.
Well, we initially decided it was going to be an adventure cooking channel. We were going to adventure to a place, and we even recorded a few of these, and they were terrible.
Yeah. Oh, I want to see these.
Oh, yeah, we might most will drop some in at some point. But we'd spend hours getting down to some secluded beach somewhere, and we'd carry all these big things because the Land Rover can carry loads of stuff. So obviously, you take all of the cooking gear that you can, stoves and everything.
This is going straight to Dave.
It sounds better than a lot of the stuff that is on Dave, actually.
Possibly even Quest.
Yeah, maybe this is a tangent. We'll have a second channel. But yeah, I think we're looking at the idea was almost like a Land Rover version of the Hairy Bikers, I think. And we called it Feed the Sensors. That was the idea. And it was awful because we didn't know how to record anything. It was far too difficult because we'd spent an hour walking there with all this gear, and then
you're the only cook.
That was the only cook, and not even. But YouTube doesn't know that. But yeah, so we said, look, there's got to be a better way, Liz. You know, how can we quench that thirst for wanting to be somewhere remote-ish, doing something that not everybody does? And being both bikers, we said, well, why don't we watch The Long Way Round? And we thought, wow, that looks brilliant, you know, in Outer Mongolia or something like that. Truth is, you don't get to go there every weekend, but, you know, maybe we can go to the Peak District and recreate a similar sort of thing. And that's really where the channel started to get born out of, was that with a mixture of Bow Miles type stuff, the backyard adventure. Can you do, and that's where the lightweight element comes. It sort of works on a few levels. Lightweight adventure, you don't have to go very far. You don't have to carry very much stuff. And then when we go to the pub, we're pretty lightweight as well. So it kind of works on all three levels.
It's like a clean adventure almost, not a burden down with all weight, either physically or metaphorically, call it what you will. But it's a adventure light or lightweight adventure, whichever way you want to see it. But
what's the name of that guy? Alistair, that we met in Wales. No,
Alistair
Humphreys. So he does these, you know, I think he's got kids, and he used to travel the world on bicycles and things like that. And now he does these mini adventures. And we actually bumped into him in a garage in Wales when we were on our trip last year.
I congratulated him on a film that he didn't make.
So embarrassing.
Well, that's a leading. Come on, you've got to tell us now.
That's a better story than anyone.
Oh, it was a Dave Cornthwaite film. I mean, they're so similar, these two people, in their filmmaking style. And Dave Cornthwaite had scooted around Japan. I congratulated Alistair Humphreys on his film that Dave Cornthwaite made. He very politely told me he didn't make that film. And I, for some reason, started to try and convince him that, no, he actually did make that film.
Which explains, when I went and chatted to him, he just assumed I was taking the piss.
My girlfriend always said, you know, don't approach people that you only know off the internet or something, or somebody who's famous. Just says it's disastrous to even attempt it. And
I just get told, don't approach people.
When you're filming these trips, have you developed a way that it doesn't, for you, spoil the experience of riding bikes and having fun?
We've almost flipped it on its head, and actually the filming gives us that experience. It's the reason to go out, you know? And I know that sounds quite, that almost sounds like we're taking away the fun of biking. You don't, because you're doing different things on bikes to get it on film. How many people might just cruise the same road, that the 30-mile road that they've cruised all the while, or off-road track or whatever, and it almost becomes samey. Well, now you've got to think about it, how to make this creative, how to make it fun, how to make it engaging, and that makes the whole riding experience different.
Yeah. Well, Greg, I mean, we keep talking about Greg, but Greg's tapped into this, hasn't he, with the shoot and ride thing? And I went out on Sunday purely to take a photograph.
Right.
I was out for sort of 2 hours just to take a picture, and it was great.
Yeah. Because it gives you a point, doesn't it? It almost gives you a reason to go out. Because if you didn't have that reason, you might just go, I can't really be bothered, so I'll sit and watch this, or I'll do that sort of thing. But if we know we've got to produce some content, otherwise everything kind of dies away. The channel dies. So we go, right, have you got a day spare? Well, let's go and take the bikes out. Let's get to the Peak District, or even if it's a local lane. Yeah, it really does. It almost fuels the bike rides, but it does to a degree take away that flowing of the adventure. And I think that's what you're talking about. And I know Greg on your previous podcast talked about your stop, and no documentary is 100% accurate, I think is the words he used. And he's right, because you'll ride a bit and you'll go, I need to capture this, but I've just done it. So can you nip back there and ride that again? Oh, but you fell off last time. Can you fall off this time? It's so there is a little bit of that, but we try to be as honest as we can in the videos, because that authenticity for us is hugely important. So sometimes if we haven't captured it, we'll just accept that it's not being captured, that bit, and something else will happen later on in the adventure.
I mean, we've tried to recreate things before, haven't we? And it's fair to say we're rubbish at that. We did a film for a local KTM dealer, and we had this great chat at the end of it. And he said, we should have recorded that. So I put the camera there, and it was like, hey, Jamie, tell me again.
It's horrendous.
We're stopping that. We're stopping this, yeah.
Yeah, people see right through it. I think you need to be a very good actor to pull that off.
Yeah.
Or have a film crew with you. That's the easy. Yeah. These people have normally got someone just wandering around just capturing everything, and then that's where you get those golden nuggets.
Darling, we have.
Yeah. So it seems.
Has it ruined watching other people's films for you? I always find the ride away shot, I'm just so distracted, because all I'm thinking is, God, that guy had to come so far back to get his camera again. How trusting was he to leave his camera there whilst he rode off to the horizon and then came back again? You're so aware of it, aren't you, once you've done it a few times?
You know what it does for me? It makes me critique our films continuously, and that's where it spoils it. So I watch theirs and go, that's so much better than ours. Every single time I watch it, I really beat myself up, because I know the heartache that they've gone through to do it, and maybe we've only done 75% of that heartache, or 50%, or whatever it is. And I think we should go through that process. We should bleed as much as these people.
I think the worst thing is when you put so much effort in and it just flops. And we were actually talking to Vanessa Rook a week or two ago. You're the girl on the bike. The girl on the bike. I don't know if you see some of her videos, but she was saying the same to us. She says, you put a lot of effort into a video and you'll think, brilliant, spend all these hours, and it'll just, for some reason, it'll do really badly. And then something else that went together in, an hour or two goes on and it just takes off and people just like it. And it's such a strange thing.
You need to get more cats in your videos, I think.
Is that what it
Fucking hell, the amount of shite that had 10 million views on it, and you just think, just literally no effort gone into that.
Yeah. Cats or a blonde wig and a little bit of lipstick.
Yeah, well, Jamie, there you go, mate.
Have you seen that woman that pretends to do motorcycle maintenance? She's an older lady, and she basically wears a see-through top, so you can see everything.
I'm definitely going to search it out later.
What's this channel?
Of course, I can send you a link. I've got it bookmarked.
Just Google see-through top.
But she gets tens of thousands of views.
Of course she does. Yeah, I'm not sure I'd get the same if I put a see-through top on. I don't know if
we'd lose subscribers. Yeah.
Why did you go for the CRFs?
We checked out every single bike on the market which filled a relevant criteria. It had to be smallish capacity, cheap, had to be economical and robust and simple to use. And we checked out the Himalayan, the 390. Help me out here, mate. I nearly bought a
MT450. We looked at that. We just wanted something that was rugged and a tool. That was the initial bit. So the old MT450, the Harley Davidson.
Oh, the old army bike, yeah.
We even looked at those,
And then I was on the brink of buying a G310 GS, and it was you actually, mate. You saved me again. You said, let's just nip up the road. Let's go see what Honda have got. Reliable, robust. You don't have to think about it. And the second I saw it, I was like, yeah, that's the tool for the job. So it wasn't born out for a love of the brand or the aesthetics, or it was because it was functional. But
also capable. You know, we looked at the GS and the Himalayan, and we started to get hung up a little bit by ground clearance, and would it start to limit us at some point, because we imagined that we're going to ride vertical drop-offs and all sorts of things, which you'd never do. You're mainly on some sort of average lane. But as soon as Mark sat on it, he just said, this feels good, it feels right. And we rode around the car park, and I think you bought it within 10 minutes, didn't you?
Yeah. And what I really liked about the CRF is it's sold as this trail bike, beginner's trail bike, commuter. I think some magazines cited it as a winter hack, and I know a lot of people use them for that. But the second I sat on it, I thought I could travel anywhere on this. And ultimately, that's what we've gone on to do. You know, we're taking them down to the south of Spain, and we've been up to the north of Scotland, and we literally go everywhere. We use them very differently to a lot of people. But I thought, once I'm on it, that's cool. I don't have to think about it. It's got all the basic things, and I know wherever I turn my wheel, it's going to take me there.
And the first ones you bought were L's or Rallies, the first one?
Mix. So Jamie's got the L and I've got the Rally, yeah.
And these are the same one, you've stuck with those first bikes that you bought, yeah?
Yeah, well, I initially, because we were looking at trying to save money, I had and still have, and it's the video that's going to come out at some point, and I decided to try and adapt a different bike. So I'm not going to say too much about it because it's not been put together yet. But that kind of ended in tears a little bit, because it just ended up costing me money to adapt it. And then was still not really designed. I was effectively trying to build a scrambler type thing, and it still wasn't really. We went down a couple of local lanes, and Marc just whipped past me on the CRF, and it gave us a massive delta between what he could achieve and what I could achieve. You know, so yeah. So then that was it. It wasn't long before the L got bought.
You bought yours new. Mine was like 6 months old or so, wasn't it? So yeah, very, very similar bikes, of course.
And when the 300 came out, did that get you thinking, I need to now change to the 300?
No, simply because. Well, and you know what? For me, no, because I'd started to adapt my 250 to now the point. I don't know how to best describe it. I didn't buy it because it's a CRF250. I bought it because it's a tool, and I've tooled mine now. So having 3 extra brake horsepower, a few extra kilos less. Who cares? You know, I'm not going to go scramble up this wild ravine if I've got 5, 10, 15 extra brake horsepower. It's not how I ride. 24 brake horsepower is ample to take me thousands of miles and go over any terrain. And realistically, we're all, I would say in this group, moderate to good riders. Not excellent, not poor. You're not going to outride a CRF250 Rally or an L. You're just not.
I mean, I think it's worth saying that I think Honda have gone in the right direction by taking it from a 250 to a 300. I think they have.
Agreed.
And I think if you're going to go and buy a brand new bike, the 300 is a better bike than the 250, just purely because it's got that bit of extra power and a couple of other gimmicks. But
I just wish they'd make a 400.
Yeah, they've got a 450, haven't they? But it's then a different bike, you know.
Twice the price,
much more servicing to be done on it, and also everything that we kind of love about the 250 and the 300s start to fall away. Unfortunately, you know, you've got to worry about servicing it, maintaining it much more, and it becomes much more of a baby to look after rather than the sort of tool that you can just put to one side and just it's going to work.
I get a little bit miffed with the beginner's bike tag.
Yeah. Because
yes, it is. It's a fantastic beginner's bike, but it's also a fantastic bike for having adventures on and doing trail riding, and it'll pretty much do everything you need it to do. The only thing I wouldn't probably want to do is commute, to be honest, but other than that.
The biggest limiting factor is the person that sat on it, ultimately. You know, as soon as you can get your skill level to somewhere where you can handle the terrain. We've got a friend who's very capable on a bike, and he was keeping up with Husqvarna 701s. Off-road happily for KTM 500s, and he was happily riding along on his 250 Rally, no problem at all. So you're absolutely right. It doesn't need to be classed as that beginner bike. You can have fun on it if you want to, you know.
Absolutely, and it's a Honda, so you know pretty much every time you press the button, even though you haven't changed the oil or the air filter for 20 years, Noel, that it's going to work.
I watched that video the other day of Noel's air filter actually on the side of the trail.
Yeah, we've all seen it.
Never allowed to forget that. It's so unfair because he's actually really good at working on his bikes and doing maintenance.
I think if you'd have seen the chains that Jamie and I just recently replaced on our bikes, we wouldn't have a single thing to say. So we don't care for our bikes. Sometimes it'll get ridden, get put in the shed and forgotten about until it gets used again.
See, it's so tempting at this stage to defend the whole air filter debacle, but it would ruin the film. It would ruin the film.
Only for the 12 people that are listening.
And it would really annoy the people that have heard me bang on about the injustice of it in the past. If I just say that it was a K&N reusable filter, the airbox Jubilee clip had come loose and it had let some water in, and that was the fault that day, not the air filter.
And if you were going to defend it, that's what you would have said. But luckily you didn't. I'm glad you never went there.
It's getting edited out.
It was great, major mechanical in the in the titles at the end, and that's what happened.
What I really loved about watching that film, and just to make it serious, is how everybody really rallied around you, Noel. There was nobody watching on from the sideways, just criticising, and that's a camaraderie of bikership, isn't it?
We tried to
about with drones.
The same thing.
It's just become a thing, though. I've been up next to river crossings where we've sort of come through first. I'm stood next to Clive, and Greg's filming somebody coming through next, and Clive is just next to you going, fall.
But that's good telly, right? That's just good for the viewer.
That's also not true.
It's great, isn't it? Enjoying the misfortune of others is one of the delights of life.
But again, the reality is, seriously, that after falling off, somebody's got the shot, then they help you up or help you fix 100%. Your bike or whatever.
On the CRFs, what's been revolutionary for me is that I have old air-cooled things like, can you see that? Yeah, so that thing, that XL600, behind it there's an XR650L. Now these are both pretty much have the same air-cooled 600, 650 engine in, and I've gone through so many cylinders and pistons and all sorts, and I've had oil starvation issues, and a lot of my time with these bikes has been taken up with them, dealing with the mechanics of them. Mm-hmm. Whereas since I've had the this CRF that I bought, this one that I've changed into a white one, I don't have to bother with the engine at all. I know the engine's absolutely fine. It's done 29,000 miles. Brilliant. But I know the engine's just fine. I can spend all my time just fiddling with the cosmetic things on it. Mm-hmm. And know that the engine's probably good for another 30,000 miles.
And you know what? A lot of people say that makes the bike vanilla because it's not got character, whatever character. Well, coming from the world of Land Rovers, I know character means broken things. Yeah. So, hey, if you want character on an adventure bike, then you're on a hide into nowhere because character comes and bites you in the bum halfway to the Alps, right? Yeah. So I don't want character. I want a tool. And you get to love it. And its character is then it's vanilla. And that's a beautiful thing, because you can. It's dependable, it's reliable, and all these words.
Do you have any other bikes squirreled away in the garage apart from the one you've been trying to build?
Yeah, so Jamie's got the Scrambler and the CRF, and then I've got an R9T, a BMW R9T Urban GS, if you can picture that.
Yeah. I've been looking at those recently. They look amazing. That's a bike that's always described as having character, isn't it?
Yeah. So this has got character, and character again is things that come at a compromise to other things. It's got character because when you rev it, the torque steer twists the bike.
Yes.
And it's got character because it's oil cooled, air cooled, and so if you sit in lights, it gets red hot, which I've not experienced yet. So they're character, aren't they? It's a bit of a nothingness bike in the sense that, is it for going fast on? Not overly. It's got 100 brake horsepower, but it's not a sports bike. Can you take it off road? Yeah, you can, but you'll spoil its beautiful looks, Yeah. So it's got character in those ways.
Yeah. There's a couple doing lots of off road on them, isn't there? I've only seen them on Instagram, and I can't remember what they're called. Have you ever come across them?
No. There's a lot of people that really abuse them. They adapt them. Hey, I couldn't bring myself to do it. It's like punching a puppy in the face.
So this has got road tires on. It never goes down a
track. No, weirdly, I've just bought some Kendra big blocks to put on it, but simply for the looks. Yeah, simply for the looks. Yeah. If it goes off road, it'll be down a gravel track to take me and him camping somewhere.
That's what I said about I got a big KTM adventure bike. I said I'm not going to take it off road. It's just going to be my road bike. And within 3 days of having it, it was going down green lanes, and it's now got knobbly tyres on and bash protection.
Do you know what? They're so good. We took out a KTM 1290 and we couldn't believe how good that was off-road with road tyres on. It was incredible. It just wears its weight so nicely down low. It feels planted. I mean, KTM, I think, are a great brand for decent off-road bikes anyway. They just feel good off the road.
Yeah, we loved both of their bikes that they lent us, and hopefully we're actually going back to ride the 890R, which we're so excited about. That should be the unicorn bike, right? But I mean, it's nothing to look at, but it looks incredible. Yeah, it probably is too big. You're absolutely right. It probably is, but it still looks incredible. I'll give them that.
Between us, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 CRFs.
5?
So there's 5. There's 2 questions there. Why have you got 2, Noel, of the same bike?
That's a good question.
And then I guess the next question is, has anybody actually had any issues with their CRFs? You can go first, Noel. Why have you got 2?
I got a Rally to begin with, and I got a Rally because my friend had one and he sorted it brilliantly. It had all the things on it that I would ever want to put on it, so it came to me in a great state. And I really enjoyed riding it, but it slightly unnerved me that I couldn't see the engine and that there was a lighter version out there. And then this CRF250L came up for sale. It was a neighbour of Greg's, and he was letting me have it for a really good price. So I thought, well, I'll buy it and do it up, and then I can really compare the two. And actually, I think I prefer the Rally to the L, strangely. But that's probably because it is so well sorted and it's got much better suspension than the L that I've got.
And you know what? If you'd have followed our channel, I did a video where I chopped the plastics on the Rally so you can see the engine. And I think that's probably made it the best all-round bike.
Yeah.
I actually shared that video with Noel and went, I'm going to do this, bearing in mind my bike's only about a month old.
That's kudos to you. I mean, you've got them in your hand there, right? Haven't you? You massive balls in your hand. Yeah. But it'll transform it. It's brilliant.
There's just no need to have them there. It's basically it's a thing to make it look like a rally bike that would normally have petrol tanks hanging down there, and all it does is it acts as a dirt storage for not being able to clean your bike properly.
That corner's kind of the first thing to hit, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's rare to see one that doesn't have that little corner that sticks out.
I fitted crash bars because I was so desperate to protect them. So what I'd done is ultimately just added 10 kilos of scaffolding around my bike and made it, I don't know, 6 inches wider or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
You really don't need crash bars because your handlebars tend to hit the ground before the engine. I don't think I've ever done any engine damage on any of my bikes.
I mean, but this was my first ever off-road bike, and I didn't know, I come from a way of road bikes where you protect your plastics at all costs. So yeah, since I've gone and blown myself up with a Dremel trying to cut my plastics off, and
my Dremel,
your Dremel,
you borrowed.
All right,
I never got back.
You can have it back. It's just not going to work.
So you got to. Are you going to sell one of them then? Are you moving one on?
No, because I think one I will.
He never keeps a bike for more than about 10 minutes.
Also, we went to Northumberland last August, and well, we didn't take trail bikes. We went on road bikes, but there was a little contingency there that had trail bikes. And when I looked at the photographs afterwards of where they'd been, I thought, actually, if I'd taken my rally bike, I don't think I would want to have taken it on those gnarly sort of river crossings and tracks they took it on. So it'd be quite nice to have a dedicated trail bike. And my rally bike, I'll keep more as a travel bike with slightly less aggressive tyres on it.
Or just do what we do and make your CRF250 Rally the one and all bike.
And that's what I was just about to say. We don't, that was the other thing for us. We wanted to be able to ride to the trails, do whatever we needed to do, and then ride back. That is key to what the CRF250s give you. They give you that to be able to keep up with the dedicated off-roaders. And also, you can trundle along the motorway at 70 mile an hour on them as well. It might not be the most comfortable, but you can do it, and you can do it for a long time, as we did recently.
I dream of having one, and this garage would be so much easier to deal with if there was just one bike in it.
Oh, the hardships you go through, Noel. I mean, space in your garage.
But you know what? Here we are saying how amazing the CRF250 is, and it's the one bike, one thing only. And we've both got yet another bike sitting in the garage, because sometimes bikers, we like variety, and you just need a different one bike, if that makes sense. Okay, it gives you two bikes, but maybe you need a third one bike. Hey,
but also this has been part of my God, I nearly said that the journey word then. Part of my motorcycling journey has been discovering which genre of motorcycling best suits me. And I'm still sort of feel like I'm trying to find that out a little bit. I always kind of piss people off by saying I actually kind of prefer road riding to trail riding in a way.
Hashtag scooter boy.
But I'm still just undecided as to which is the best one for me. I think I just enjoy all the different types. I still occasionally, late at night, start looking at cruisers.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Jesus, we're talking to these other two, not you. Stop talking now. Don't get yourself in any deeper.
Hey, we've looked at cruisers. You've looked at bobbers. I've got an R90 in the garage. Hey, we're there with you, Noel. Sorry, Clive. You're the outsider here, mate.
Bloody hell. Let's end this podcast now. So the second part of my question was, has anybody actually had any issues, or do we know of any significant issues that CRFs, 250s and 300s have had?
Well, we've had one issue between us, haven't we, mate? Take it over. Yeah, when you first got your L.
Yeah, well, actually, mechanically, my L, when I bought it brand new, one of the first trips we did, well, I think the very first trip we did was go to the Peak District, and I rode my brand new bike off-road, and we all know how rocky the Peak District is.
But and how amateur we were at the same time.
Amateur, yes, with my minutes of road experience, off-road experience. But our second trip was to Wales, and we decided to do the Tet, north to south in Wales. And by the end of that trip, I'd done only, I think it was less than 1,000 miles on the bike. And
hadn't even done its running, had it?
The clutch had gone on it. But mechanically, that was the only problem I had. I did go back to Honda and a bit backwards and forwards, and they didn't really want to change it, but they did change it in the end, put a new clutch in, and then that one was fine for the next couple of 1,000 miles. I had no problems. So I don't know if it was just at installation.
Rider error.
Unlikely.
Do you feel like you'd ridden? Do you feel like you'd ridden the clutch quite a lot?
No, not really. One of the weird thing was one of the questions I got was, "Well, you've not ridden it off road, have you?" I was like, well, yeah. Yes, I have. And it was like, well, it's not really made for that. I was like, what are you talking about? But yeah, so it ultimately, maybe it was when I was learning it, maybe I was riding the clutch a bit more, but even so, it shouldn't happen that in 600 miles. So we got a new one in, and I've since actually upgraded and put a new clutch in it just the other week, actually. But other than that, mechanically, that's the only problem that either of us experienced, that and a flat tyre. That's about it.
Have you ever drowned them?
No, and you've really tried, haven't you, mate?
No, they didn't need to know that one.
When we went through the River Colorado, oh no, it was a puddle, wasn't it?
It's at the end of a horrible day's ride. It was a long day's riding in Wales, and it was on that trip. And we got to the end, and we'd got a planned place that we were going to stop off, and we'd booked in for a camp. And Mark says, "Do you want to just go over this bit, just this one last little bit?" And I said, and it was a bit cold. It'd been raining all day, and I said, "Oh mate, I just don't want to end up laying down in a puddle, because I'm tired." And
he does. That's exactly what he wants.
Oh, so we rode up this sort of scraggly little lane, and we got to the top, and there was just what was a massive puddle ultimately, and there was no way of getting around it. All the sides were just mush, and it was just harder work to get around it. And I had no real experience of going through water crossings. So Mark, with his big gangly legs, because he's unusually tall, went first, and he was able to put his feet down and keep himself all right. And there was a big bank on the left-hand side, so I thought if I keep close to that and go nice and slow, I can just kind of paddle with one foot. And so that's what it did to about the middle. And then the front wheel went, and the whole bike just did that sort of comedy straight over to the side, and the whole thing went under the water.
Your head went under. Oh. Your head and shoulder went under. The whole bike went under. Like this bike had done 400 miles at this point.
Did you manage to kill the engine?
Yeah, the engine kind of stopped. I quickly jumped off it because I was already in the water. I jumped off it. Luckily, I don't know how I got it up. We just started it up, and it just blew stuff straight out. I was absolutely fine. I was really lucky, but yeah, and I'd gone all the way, all one side, all the helmet was under the water. I was properly submerged on, luckily, the exhaust side. That was really useful.
Note to readers, it's probably best to check your airbox before you actually try and start your engine after it's been underwater.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and we completely know this now, and we've done multiple water crossings, but at that time, really, Jamie had ridden 400 miles off road. Well, 400 miles on an off-road bike, let alone off-road.
Brand new.
And I was literally a month or so ahead of you. We were that amateur, and we tackled all of Wales Tet. And so this is how we learned. We went in, it was a baptism of fire. It wasn't, shall we just go do a course? Shall we get some mates to show us that? No. Feet first. Let's do this. We've got 2 off-road bikes, right?
Bits of Wales are really hard, aren't they?
Oh,
really hard.
Really hard. Mark ended up in tears on there's a big old climb. I think it was in North Wales, and we got halfway up, and Mark this was like on day 2 of a 5-day trip, and I think at that point it was ready for coming home, weren't you?
Yeah.
I spent a long time in the early stages very, very nervous of kind of having a go at anything on the bike, because it was all new. You know, I'd ridden plenty of time. I'd done a lot of commuting on road, so I was happy on a road. And there's a few times where Mark and I got to something that looked quite daunting, and you know, it's worse if you kind of half commit to it, isn't it? If you're a bit tentative, you've had it. You know, you either got to say I'm not doing it, or you've got to just ride with confidence and have confidence.
It's all about keeping momentum, isn't it? Really, just keeping going.
Bit of momentum.
Yeah,
trusting the tyres
and conviction. You know, having a bit of conviction about it.
Absolutely, yeah. As soon as you kind of, if you half commit, everything's going to get difficult. If you try and paddle everything, that's going to get difficult. If you accept that the bike will do its job, it'll tractor on, which the CRF does brilliantly, and the tyres will grip, you 9 times out of 10
You're
okay.
golden.
I wanted to also talk about accessorising and improving and upgrading.
I think the first thing to say before we talk about the actual upgrades is the disposability and the upgradability of the CRF is the reason we bought it, because you only pay $4,000, whatever it is. You're not paying 14,000 for a brand new GSA, which you daren't take a Dremel to. So that's the beauty of the CRF. I don't think there's one component or one area on the bike that we've not upgraded in some respect. I think the first upgrade was the tyres. We went to the Michelin trackers, which, if you've not tried them, hands down, probably one of the best 50/50 tyres out there. We tried all the different sprocket combinations. We've done the airbod mocks, suspension. We've replaced all the suspension Hyper Pro setup. The handlebars are different. The screens are different. Wow, I mean, you literally name it. You look around the bike. We've changed a lot, but it's all basic stuff and it's all cheap. So I reckon I've probably only laden about 650, 700 quid onto my rally, which I bought for 4,100. So for less than $5,000, now I've got a really sorted rally. And Jamie's in a very similar boat, you know. We were lucky. Adventure Spec sent us a whole bunch of kit to review and keep. So he's got a whole Adventure Spec suite on his L. And that has transformed his bike from being a trail bike with not a lot to do really into this rally adventure tool machine, call it what you will. Yeah. So yeah, we've done a lot of upgrades. I think my favorite upgrade has got to be chopping the plastics. So I'm really excited for you to do that, Clive, and I want you to send us videos and photos.
Yeah, I am very, very tempted. It's just that the thought of, like you say, it's point of no return, isn't it? Really,
Yeah.
And you can get new plastic.
Yeah.
They cost about 250 quid.
Yeah, it's not cheap
For both sides.
Do you think a Dremel is the best tool for it?
Yeah, and if I could do it again, I would. See, I cut the first one off the bike and then I fit it up. What I really should have done is just release the lower plastics, pulled it aside, make sure I was cutting in safe, maybe put something behind it and just cut it on the bike to get the form correct.
Problem with a spinning tool cutting plastic, it quite often melts rather than does a clean cut, so you're always left with a little bit of...
Exactly what this did. So I just got another piece of plastic deburred, and then I bought some car trim, you know, that goes around the doors and boots of old cars at least. Yeah. And I trimmed it off with that, and it looks practically factory finish.
Yeah. Another good trick for trim, which somebody once gave me because I had a fiberglass cowl on the front, which had a really sharp edge to it. And somebody just said, just get some petrol pipe and a really sharp Stanley knife and cut the length of the petrol pipe, black fuel pipe, and then slip that over. And that's still on the bike today. That's a really good.
Yeah. How dare you? How absolutely dare you say that when you've taken the piss out of my foot peg extensions, what I made myself?
Oh, go on. Tell us about these.
They're an absolute work of art.
They're an aberration.
Unreal. Unfucking believable. I'll send you a picture. They're not.
It's
They're
just the fact that you've done
brilliant.
this to your brand new. You know, I was there the day you wheeled it out of a gorgeous
I'm definitely
showroom.
cutting them fucking things off now, just because
And the
it
next
piss
minute,
you off.
you're there in your workshop on an anvil beating some makeshift foot. They make fantastic footrests for them. Why are you beating something out of an old tin can?
It's actually 4mm stainless steel bar.
Oh, it's turning into something like you like. It looks like something you've built whilst you've been shipwrecked.
They're great, actually. I basically just used an angle grinder and cut like little V's all the way along. 25mm strip of I bent it. I didn't have anything to heat the steel up with, so I just had to twat it with a hammer for about an hour until I got to the rough shape. And then I drilled 4 holes and bolted them on. Look great.
So do you have an online shop, Clive, where we can buy things?
And you had to do this to get out of Uzbekistan, you were saying?
Just to get out of my garage. I've got big feet, what can I tell you? No, the reason I did it was because a lot of the foot peg, bigger foot pegs you buy, they're wider, but they're not longer. So to me, a foot peg extension you should be able to get your whole foot on it. So I think, not your whole foot, not literally 12 inches. That'd be ridiculous.
Running boards. You need running boards on this.
Fuck, why didn't I think of that? Yeah, let's get back to cruisers. And I also made myself a side stand extension. Well, the side stand's quite short, so if you're on a slope, the bike's just going to fall over. So I've got like a 1-inch piece of plastic.
Got a Cuban heel on it now.
It's very similar. Yeah. People don't wear those anymore, do they?
No. Jamie does.
Oh,
I have to. I'm in them now, so I can see the camera.
Jamie stood up.
Hold on.
So we were just talking about accessories, Jamie. Have you got anything that you've done to your bike apart from all the adventure spec stuff that you've got?
Yeah, I was really lucky with all that. I think if I was going to nail down one upgrade that I did that I think, I don't want to use the word revolutionise because people throw that around a lot, but really made a big difference to the way the bike handles and rides, and it's the suspension. I didn't realise how soft the suspension was until I changed it out. And we initially went to some progressive springs like the Hyper Pro and went for almost the cheap option on the back. And that worked. And then my shock seemed to blow at some point, and I wasn't really sure what it was. But that warranted me to go out and spend a bit more money ultimately. So I got the YSS shock on the back. That's what it's on now. And it really, really made a big difference to how I could ride and how I could kind of just soak up all of the undulation of the off-road stuff. And it was really that, coupled with the tyres. The suspension and tyres, I think, are the two best things that anybody can do to make the bike handle better, and they made a big difference. Other than that, aesthetically, I actually went through a bit of a process. I went on a weight shedding journey. So I changed out the whole exhaust, and I managed to save several kilos on that. I don't know exactly how much, I can't remember. Yeah, aftermarket exhaust, aftermarket downpipe, and everything else. So that was really good. I've since put the old exhaust back on because I kept getting a headache because you can't get a nice light exhaust that's quiet. So I went back to the old one just because it was a lot nicer to go along the lanes with and a lot nicer to do the long journeys. The other thing I did is I swapped out the battery for a lithium battery to save a bit of weight there. But again, it's almost a bit pointless. I wanted it to be nice and light and nimble. What it actually did, it just made it a nightmare on the bloody motorway because the nose kept going light, and I get a little bit of nose wheel wobble. So I've added weight back in, and I've just fitted a massive tank to it, a big 3.2 gallon tank, because the biggest problem we had when we were both going out together is the Rally's got a much better range than the L, and Marc would never have to think about fueling, never have to think about petrol stations. And every 5 minutes, I'd get about 100 miles out of a tank, which meant that at around about 80 to 90 miles, I was starting to think about a fuel station, which doesn't give you an awful lot of riding. So eventually I managed to source a tank online from off Facebook. Someone was selling it. And I put that on just a few weeks ago, and we did a long ride. And it was the first time we'd gone out and I didn't have to think about fueling at all. And it was such a good feeling.
I've got some numbers on the 300. So for the new 300, the L is 7.8 litres and the Rally is 12.8 litres. So you get an extra 5 litres, which equates to 130 miles versus about 215 miles.
And on the Rally, that's significant because my Rally's only got 10.2 litres, I think, or whatever it is. And actually, now that Jamie's got 13.5, you never had to think about fuel on our ride up, but my bum was proper twitching, and I've not felt that for a long, long time. And we got to, my LED thing was flashing, and I went over the intercom and said, Jamie, mate, my thing's been flashing for like the next 10 miles, and we're in the back end of beyond. Like, there is not another petrol station. I've been worried about fuel for many, many years. So thanks, mate. You've transferred that burden straight to me, haven't you?
You take that. I've had it for 2 years. You can have it now. What we did find, though, when he went and put the fuel in, is he still had about 1.5 litres, 2 litres in the tank. So if you have got a 250L or a Rally, then actually that flashing light comes on and you've still got a fair bit of distance.
I reckon you've got 20 to 25 miles once you start flashing.
Yeah, I always thought they'd sort of worked it out that you had about 30.
Right, and maybe that's the case.
Yeah.
I certainly did 10 and still had 1.5 litres left, which was surprising.
So, Jamie, your bike, does it feel, obviously it's a much fatter tank, do you quite like the feel of it now that it's a wider looking thing that you're looking down on?
Oh, you know what, Noel? I think it looks incredible. So it's the yellow. I initially wanted one of the black tanks because I thought, well, black tank coming off, black tank going back on. But actually, I got one of the yellow ones, and it looks very off-roady. It looks very dirt bikey. And
the transparent one, or
yeah. So it's an Acebus or Acebus.
Yeah.
I don't know how you say it, but you can see the fuel level inside, which is quite a nice thing. But it hasn't. I've not tried it off road yet. We've not done any off road stuff, so I don't know how it handles there. But on road, it feels a lot nicer. Actually, it just brings a bit of weight to the front end of the bike. It seems to sit a little bit nicer on motorways. Yeah, I'm genuinely very, very pleased with it. And I think it's. I mean, you always, every mod you do, you go, oh, that's the best mod. It's just the latest mod. It's the latest.
Can I just say, from a complete outsider, I think it looks absolutely incredible. It's transformed the look from a trail bike to a small adventure bike. I think it looks great.
Well, that was going to be my next question. What have you done to prepare the bikes for going on longer adventures?
Well, we're just now starting to get to the point where we've done all of the routine mods, the swapping a component out for this, Y, and Z. And now we're getting into the nitty gritty of, right. I mean, I even said to you, Jamie, I've got this foam thing across my Renthal handlebars. I said, that's prime real estate. So I'm going to take that off. And I'm going to weld bits to the crossbar to mount cameras because picking up cameras and GoPros and stuff when you're riding is treacherous. So, right, that's prime real estate. So I'm going to weld a little bracket on there, and that's where my GoPro is going to sit. And I've wired in new USBs, and I've just hacked plastic apart to get there, And my little extra screen, I've just drilled bits in my screen to hold bit. So we're starting to now go down the Clive school of bike modification and just take a hacksaw and a drill to it.
Some very fine engineering.
I told you, Marc, I've booked us into his workshop. We were booked in a couple of weeks, mate. So
I'll bring my files.
Yeah, you'll need to bring a hammer and a chisel.
I've got the hammers.
I think we've got to the stage now where we're not bothered about the bikes looking pretty anymore. They're still relatively new. Mine's like 2 years old. And if you're on a sports bike, a 2-year-old sports bike, you'd be like, that's good. Nothing's going anywhere near that. That doesn't make it look even better. Whereas now it's very much, I just want it to be a tool that I can take out the garage, go and use to see something that I've not seen before or experience something I've not experienced before. So we're very much getting down to kind of racks that are usable, that make life easy. Anything that makes my life on the bike easy is the next thing that's going to go onto the bike. Looks and aesthetics are very much not on my radar at the minute.
I think that is the thing with a dirt bike. It's almost a relief when you do scratch something for the first time, because it's like, thank God for that, just get on with it now. And it's interesting seeing a lot of obviously new people to dirt bikes, and they're like, what do you use to clean the plastics with? What? A hose? I don't know.
My plastics have got a big crease in it, and it was from a really impressive fall in the campsite.
Practically off a cliff site in the campsite.
Yeah, my little legs didn't help me out again, and the bike went over. And I've got a crease down the right-hand side, and it's never fully popped out. I've tried it a few times. But actually, I got to the point where I go, actually, it's a battle scar now, and it reminds me of that trip.
It's a memory, isn't it? Yeah, a memory, absolutely.
And that's how we've gone, and that's the point I was just trying to make. Now we're trying to add a story to the bikes, We're not trying to force it at all, but every little sticker, every little scratch, every little dent, every accidental drill hole where I've just gone haphazard with a drill, right, that's part of its tapestry. That's its journey, Noel. You'll like that.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, I love that. And we'd gone to the adventure bike. What was it, Jamie? The Adventure and Overland Festival down in Stratford.
Yes.
Great little show if you've never been. All vehicles, so from massive trucks down to little Land Rovers and bikes.
Check out the video. There's a video, Clive. I'll send you.
Yes,
I'll have a look. Yeah, I haven't watched that one. I watched all the others, every single one.
But we bumped into this guy who had this BMW, which was about 74 million years old, and it was beautiful. This thing had been accidentally curated into this adventure machine, and every little thing he'd say, and this is when I fell off in Scandinavia, and this is where a buffalo rammed me off my bike, and whatever. I was like, I love that. I love that. It tells a story. It's an adventure.
Yeah.
And Mark said, and this is why I bought it from Hull. And this is the new thing that I bought online. I got it cheap. It was $14.99.
And Noel will be like, "Oh, this is where I spilt my latte and got some a cream tea all over the handlebars."
And Clive will be, "This is a bit of driftwood, which I use as handlebars now."
The latte thing, actually, that's a big adventure thing. We've spoken to a friend of ours, Gordon. You might have seen him on the channel, but he did the GS Trophy, a BMW GS Trophy, and we had a look around his bike once, and he talked to us, and he said the best mod he's made is a cup holder, and he had it like tie wrapped onto the front of the bike. And he said that's when I go to the cafe, I could put my latte in there.
I remember a lot of people used to cut a tennis ball in half and put a wet rag in the tennis ball, which was strapped to your handlebar, so you had something to clean your visor with.
Brilliant.
That was a popular one in the olden days.
Oh, I like that.
Right, my dog's got one less tennis ball tonight.
Yeah. Have you two done anything to your bikes, by the way? You talk about us doing mods and stuff. Have you done much to yours? I know yours is like...
So yeah, bar risers, foot peg extensions, brackets homemade, tail tidy, hand guards, new grips, taking the rear foot pegs off, homemade side stand extension, 12-volt USB, sump guard, rear brake protector. I haven't done the suspension yet because I'm waiting for Adam to come up with the rally raid stuff. So apparently, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this yet, but apparently it shipped from Holland last week, so it should be arriving. And I'm getting straight down there to get that fitted and making a film about that. Moto X full system. The reason I put the new exhaust on, A, for weight, but also I really hate those mild steel headers. And in fact, Noel had a real problem getting his old one off because they just rust and rot really quite quickly. So I wanted to put a stainless steel header pipe on.
The end can's horrible as well. That just rusts the back. Yeah. I mean, the originals are that's where they're saving their money. The engine's brilliant, but the components like that are where the money's saved and why you get a cheap bike ultimately.
Well, the nice thing is they're made in Thailand. There's a lot of spares made, a lot of parts made in Thailand, and you can actually buy them from Biker Bits quite cheaply. So for a full exhaust system, it wasn't very much money, was it? 140 quid or something. It's not a problem. Just ordered an Outback Motortech pannier rack because Greg's going to give me some Magadans to use in the next film.
Yeah, I think they'll be great bags as well. I think they'll look good on the bike.
Yeah,
they look big though. They do look big. I'd be interested.
They do look big, but I'm assuming you can roll them down and make them a little bit smaller, hopefully.
You do shop for a lot of beer at about 4:00 most days.
Yeah, yeah, which is why it'll be useful. Yeah, absolutely.
The one mod I've done that I got a bit of stick for, because it seemed to be a bit unnecessary to some people, was that because my exhaust header was a nightmare to get off, and that's because it had so much weather pelted at it by the front wheel for 29,000 miles, so it had really sealed itself into the block. But on trial bikes I've had, quite a lot of them have come, or I've put on a splash guard, which is a bit of heat-proof plastic that wraps, goes around, just a flat piece of plastic with a hole in it, and a cut that allows you to get it over the header and then just wire tie it to the frame. So
the reason you got stick for that was I showed you one of my homemade mods, and you just went, "That's very ugly."
Yeah. And then showed you that.
And then and then you put that, and I just went, cut, paste. Yeah. That's very ugly.
That splash guard gets completely covered and obliterated, but it's all the shit that would have hit the block, and now he's kept back by this splash guard. So I think that's quite a good little mod that most people don't put on the L version.
Yeah.
What's Clive, are you?
I don't need one. I've got a rally that I'm going to cut up as soon as we finish recording this podcast. I'm going to post the fucking bits to you.
The beauty is, if you've got the confidence to do it, the worst case scenario is if it goes wrong, they're not overly expensive for a new set of plastics, and but you stand to really individualize it, make it your own.
I'm just worried what Clive's going to reincarnate the plastic as. He's going to take it off the pan and then put it on as a seat, or I don't know.
I've also just done a welding course as well over the last 4 Saturdays. Anything could happen. So I guess the final thing I wanted to talk about was the riding experience, which we haven't really touched upon really. So I've come from 16 years of riding a KTM Enduro bike, which I still absolutely love. It's a massive grin. That snap of acceleration is utterly compelling. But I really enjoy riding my 300 because it is so easy to ride. The clutch is so light. The power comes in even though some people seem to complain about it. They've obviously, never ridden something that's ready to race before. So that I literally just can slide it out of my garage on our gravel drive and have it sliding all the way out. I have to do a 90-degree turn to get onto the road kind of thing. And it's just so lovely to ride like that. You can, being a less powerful bike, I think you said earlier, Mark, you can absolutely just cane it, and it's great fun.
I was amazed at just how great they are on the motorway. I rode back from Wales last year in the rain and was pretty much kept completely dry by the weather protection on it. I didn't have waterproof pants on, and I arrived home with a dry crotch pretty much, which was quite unheard of in the rain, even with waterproofs, really.
When you say pants, do you mean trousers?
There were trousers. There were, the new AF.
Okay, because pants in England means something completely different, doesn't it? And I believe we are still in England.
But I was laughing my head off coming up the third lane on the motorway, thinking, I'm on a fucking 250.
Yeah.
Overtaking 911 quite often.
Yeah.
On a 250 on the motorway. It was just incredible. But also you're saying about you've got to change your mindset a little bit. I don't like, because I've always tried to be quite kind to my bikes. I've never really liked the idea of revving them quite highly. But so that was a big adjustment for me, that you do have to rev this bike don't you? To get the best out of it. You have to be not shy of getting up into the sort of the top 2/3 of the range.
Yeah.
Really.
We spoke to a friend of ours, Gordon. I'm going to bring him up again, but apparently there's 2 maps naturally on the bike anyway. So if you roll on the power nice and gently, you'll be on one map, which is a very easy, learner-friendly one. If you rip the throttle back quickly, it'll jump it into its more snappy map, its more racer map, and you'll actually feel a little bit of a difference, and you'll hear a little bit of a step change in the engine as well. So you can almost control it a little bit better in that sense as well. So if you want to be a bit more sort of rippy up the lanes or up the road or whatever it might be, if you open up your throttle quicker, and like you say, Clive, it's not going to throw you off the back, which is brilliant. You can kind of get a little bit of power out of it that way as well.
I think it's in the sense, it's a really poor enduro bike, which a lot of people buy them for ridiculously. It's not that. It's a trail bike. I see it as a small adventure bike, and the second you see it as a downgraded adventure bike, you're in a perfect sense. You wouldn't get on a massive 1200 GS or a V-Strom or whatever it is, snap the throttle and think, great, I'm going into a power slides. But you'd get on it and you'd get up to speed and you'd sweep around. That's what the 250 does, and it does it better than any of those bigger bikes, in my opinion. Yeah. It's an adventure bike, not an enduro bike. It just looks like one, and the second you accept that, you're in for a much better experience.
It's very much that bike of compromise, isn't it? And as soon as you accept that it's going to be a compromise somewhere, but actually, if you want good at everything, which it kind of is, you're in a great place.
Yeah. Well, this is something John Ross said to me about his. He said it's not very good at one particular thing, but it's very good at lots of different things.
Yeah.
Well, there's a reason that a lot of people take them around the world. You wouldn't go around the world on a hard enduro or a trials bike. You just wouldn't. I mean, you'd try and ride coast to coast if you're a bit of an idiot. I've seen a video of someone doing that. That's not what it's for. But something like this, you can go out on Sunday and take a nice little trail ride. You can equally ride to Norway. You just got to accept that it might not be as good as something else in all of these things. Yeah. But the difference is it can do all of these things.
The Swiss Army bike. Yeah.
Have you all suffered riding at altitude at all?
Well, we do live in Lincolnshire, Noel. So we did go up the Lincolnshire.
But when you've been to Spain, have you ever been up high enough that you've had any issues? Or
no, I mean, we were recently in higher. I don't know whether we let the cat out of the bag. Our video comes out this Sunday, but we're off to the Isle of Skye, and we rode to the top of some mountains-ish on some of the passes, and we felt no discernible difference. I mean, my hands slowed down faster than my bike. So, no discernible difference. Heated hand grips. We talked about mods. Heated hand grips. And don't let anybody ever laugh at you. I got some super muffs, same as Jamie did. Hey, we're talking about mods. Yeah. Hands down, pun intended, the best mods.
Yeah, we're a big fan of the bar muffs.
I mean, they look horrible. They don't look good. It makes your bike look like a moose. But... if you want warm hands, we rode to Skye and we rode through snow and we had little trail gloves on, and that is all we wore with the heated grips.
Yeah, I had my Adventure Spec trail gloves on at some points. Heated grips, muffs, perfect. Yeah. And Noel, you were talking about the riding experience. We, in 72 hours or less, we covered 1,300 miles or so. And we rode through every single season. I didn't come out with it with dry pants, either trousers or pants, Clive. In fact, I was drenched. but it was fine. We got off the other end and was like, cool, that was a thing.
It wasn't fine. Apparently there was some storm last week and we were in it.
It was
So we were on the bike.
times.
Yeah. It was horrendous.
I only brought up the height thing because I noticed that one day in the Pyrenees last October that my bike really struggled and I could only put it down to the height that I was at. I don't know how high it was, but it was struggling to keep up with the other 200-300s I was with.
No, we've got through an hour and a half of talking about a CRF without you mentioning fuel economy.
I was thinking about it and I was like, don't mention fuel economy. But whilst you're not listening, don't you get a slight kind of doesn't your heart leap a little bit every time you fill it up and you think, it's 12 quid. I can't believe I've done all that and it was 12 quid. That's 2 days of fun I've had.
We search out the most expensive fuel, don't we? Put it in and go, yes, I've spent less than a tenner.
But yeah, they are incredible, aren't they?
Yeah.
Unbelievable, yeah.
It contributes to that cheap disposability, affordability that means adventure. It makes it accessible. Hey, we're all middle-aged guys here. Kids, responsibilities, whatever. Money matters, Money matters. And so you could have the latest KTM 690 with all the Farkles and Haagen-Dazs on it, or you can have a CRF rally. And I bet you have as much fun on the rally or the Oriel.
Yeah.
You might not get there quite as fast, but you'll have $8,000 in your pocket after you've crashed it. Yeah. We've got I'm not going to say too much about it here, but we are working on a project which will bring a 250 up to a 300 in comparison. And we'll have that dyno tested. We'll have it all buttoned up. So leave that with us.
Sounds like a blown engine to me.
Fingers crossed not. They're well proven elsewhere in the world. Hey, leave it with us. If it comes to nothing, it comes to nothing. Yeah, but that's our goal. That's what we're hoping for. And if we can bring everybody on a 200 up to a 300 power, then I think we're in a really great space.
Well, my 250 rally had a 300 kit fitted to it. This kit from America.
Right.
So I think it's just a barrel, isn't it? Pretty much. But you have to put is it an EJK?
So an EJK is a funny old thing. It modifies signals. It doesn't give its own signals. And what we found already doing a lot of the sort of research to the bike is the bike's already run lean, and an EJK leans it out. So an EJK does give discernible difference, but not in the right way. Not in the way that we're going to go. We're going to go very much down the ECU route. And we've been speaking with Thailand a lot about this, and we've got a guy in UK who's helping us. So yeah, again, not to give too much away, but fingers crossed, if we can squeeze out a couple of extra torques and maybe half a brake horsepower, I think will be comparable to a 300. Not the same. The 300 will always be better. Displacement is the key, but it'll be comparable.
Yeah. Well, this one got put back because when it got drowned, it was very quickly drained and sorted, and it had hydrolocked in the barrel. But the one thing that then failed was that water had got into that EJK unit.
Yeah.
And completely screwed it.
Yeah.
So that really put him off and just had the whole thing put back to stock again.
I think the biggest adjustment that you can make to the CRF250 or the 300's power is your mindset. And I know that sounds a ridiculous thing to say, but as soon as you accept that you're not on a ready to race or a gas or something, hey, you're adventuring. You're not moto enduroing or whatever the term might be. You're adventuring, and that means taking in the world. It can still be exciting. You can't see squirrels at 70 miles an hour down a track, so it's exciting in that sense, but you don't also need to be going 0 to 60 down forest tracks, in my mind. So I think that's the biggest adjustment you can make, is your mindset towards what you're out there to do on the bike. Because as soon as you realize you're going that little bit slower, hey, you know what? This is really enjoyable.
Well, that was a very enjoyable chat with Mark and with Jamie. What you actually heard then was edited down from nearly 2 hours of us just chatting and having a laugh. Properly nice blokes. So make sure you have a look at their YouTube channel, The Lightweight Adventurers, and tell them that we sent you. Next week, we're going to be joined by Darren Higginson, who features in the film London to Sydney, which is a full-length motorcycle adventure film on YouTube. Darren's one of 2 blokes who rode all the way from London to Sydney, and he's going to tell us the story that features in that film. Make sure you check out YouTube and watch the film before listening to the podcast. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening. We really appreciate your support. Don't forget you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And if you really appreciate what we do, you could consider supporting us on Patreon or buy us a coffee. Links are available on our website, which is tampodcast.com, tampodcast.com, where we also have a limited selection of branded stuff. But either way, please keep listening and spreading the word. See you next time.